So, Princess Charlotte just got handed a major public role at an age when most kids are still figuring out long division, and the whole thing was announced in a way that makes it pretty clear Queen Camilla had absolutely no idea it was coming. That's the story, and honestly, the part that makes it interesting isn't the announcement itself. It's everything the announcement reveals about who's actually running things. Before we get into it, make sure you hit subscribe and join us here at Crown Watch so you don't miss the next update. Let's go back to this moment at Kensington Palace, because the setting alone tells you something. This wasn't a state dinner or some televised address from Buckingham Palace with all the formal protocols in place. This was a garden event, a charity gathering, the kind of thing that gets polite coverage and a few nice photos. Reporters showed up expecting the usual. Princess Charlotte smiling, Prince George looking slightly uncomfortable in a blazer, Princess Catherine looking flawless, Prince William saying something gracious about the charity. That's it. That's what everyone thought they were getting. Instead, William gets up and delivers what amounts to a restructuring of the royal family's public face right there on a summer afternoon, with the breeze blowing and palace officials apparently finding out in real time along with everyone else. He talks about honouring Queen Elizabeth's legacy and building for the future. And then, he says, Princess Charlotte will begin her official duties as a Crown representative. Not eventually. Not someday. Now. The crowd gasps audibly. Journalists scramble to get their phones up because nobody was prepared for this. Palace staff look shocked. This wasn't on the schedule. This wasn't briefed in advance. The thing about royal announcements is they usually follow a pattern. There's a press release. There's coordination with the King's office. There's a sense that the family is moving together as one unit. Even if behind the scenes they're at each other's throats, the performance is unity. So when an announcement this significant happens without King Charles and Queen Camilla present, without a statement from them, without even a mention of them in the speech, that's not an oversight. That's a message. And their silence afterward is even louder. No joint statement, no warm words of support from Clarence House. Nothing. Just a void where the King and Queen should have been. And that void is the whole story. What makes this even more striking is the context leading up to it. For months, there have been whispers about William quietly meeting with senior Commonwealth officials, about Catherine taking on advisory roles that usually go to more senior royals, about Princess Charlotte being prepped for media training at an age that surprised even palace insiders. These weren't loud rumors. They were the kind that get denied if anyone asks directly, but they kept coming up, and they all pointed in the same direction. Someone was planning something, and the person watching all of this most closely was Camilla, who had every reason to be concerned. Because here's the dynamic that makes this whole situation so tense. Camilla spent years, actual decades, working to change her public image. She went from being the other woman, the most controversial figure in Charles's life, to Queen Consort. That took patience and strategy and a lot of carefully managed PR. She got there. She weathered the scrutiny, the comparisons to Diana, the public skepticism, all of it. And just when she reaches the position she fought for, just when Charles finally gets the crown he waited his entire life for, the ground starts shifting underneath them. William and Catherine are pulling crowds that eclipse the King's events. Polls show they're the most trusted members of the family. Their appearances generate global attention. And Charles, who should be enjoying his reign after all those decades as heir, seems to be withdrawing. Palace insiders say he became unstable as his official duties decreased. He cancelled engagements, citing exhaustion. His advisers initially dismissed it as a natural break after a difficult first year, but the people closest to the situation felt there was more going on. Charles was frustrated. He felt overshadowed. Everywhere William and Catherine went, they got the warm reception that Charles, with his more distant manner and the ongoing debate around Camilla, couldn't seem to match. So you have a king who's struggling, a queen who's watching her hard-won position get sidelined, and a prince and princess of Wales who are moving forward with what looks like a very deliberate plan. The tensions behind closed doors must have been extraordinary. Reports say Charles argued with senior advisers about how to handle William's rising profile. Some sources claimed that Queen Elizabeth, in her final months, urged Charles to prepare for a smooth handover to William, that she saw where things were heading and wanted the transition managed properly. But Camilla opposed any shift that didn't keep her and Charles at the centre, and you can understand why from her perspective. She didn't go through everything she went through just to become a footnote while her stepson and his wife take over the institution. But here's the thing about institutional power. It doesn't really care about personal feelings. The monarchy's survival depends on public support, on relevance, on the ability to connect with people in a way that makes them feel the institution is worth keeping. And right now, William and Catherine are delivering that in a way Charles and Camilla simply aren't. The public has made its preferences clear. The media has followed. Foreign ambassadors are reaching out to Kensington Palace instead of Clarence House. Staff who were once loyal to Charles and Camilla are shifting their attention to the Waleses. Camilla called an urgent meeting with palace advisers to try to restore some sense of the old order. And Charles's response was basically, "Let it unfold, it's already begun." That's not a king asserting control. That's a king who knows the decision has already been made. So back to the garden at Kensington Palace. William's speech wasn't just about Charlotte. It was a declaration of intent. He said, "The crown isn't a relic. It's a living promise of service, and that promise belongs to the future." He talked about evolving tradition rather than abandoning it. And then he brought his daughter forward and said she would begin attending engagements with her mother, learning service, helping shape a new vision. This is not how royal children have traditionally been introduced to public life. There's usually a slower progression, a careful testing of the waters, a respect for the hierarchy that places the direct heir first and everyone else in supporting roles. But here was William elevating Charlotte in a way that suggests she's not just going to be a background figure. She's being prepared for real responsibility, possibly rivaling George in terms of public presence and influence. The photos spread instantly. Charlotte standing beside her father, composed beyond her years. That modest smile that somehow reminded people of both Diana and Queen Elizabeth. Social media went wild, and the message was clear. This family is the future, and the future is starting now, whether the current king and queen like it or not. What's easy to miss in all the focus on William and Charlotte is Catherine's role in this. She stood beside William during the announcement, calm and steady, her hand on George's back in this quietly reassuring gesture that telegraphed unity. But behind the scenes, reports suggest she's been anything but passive. Catherine has apparently been studying royal dynamics for years, and what we're seeing now looks like the result of a very carefully planned strategy. She reportedly commissioned public polls months before the announcement to gauge support for Charlotte taking on a bigger role, and the results showed strong approval. She and William review public reactions and media coverage every night, adjusting their approach. When Camilla pushed for influence, Catherine chose silence. When asked about the tensions, she said nothing. But that silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. Catherine's popularity isn't manufactured. It's built on years of genuine moments, the hospital visits, the way she interacts with children, the obvious warmth she has with her own kids. People respond to that because it feels real, and that authenticity gives her a kind of power that titles can't confer. She's not just William's wife or George and Charlotte's mother. She's become the strategic center of this whole operation, the person who understands that the monarchy can't survive by clinging to the past. It has to evolve, and she's making sure it evolves in a direction that secures her children's future. The irony in all of this is that Camilla's position was supposed to be the culmination of a long, difficult journey. She endured the affair allegations, the divorce, the public anger after Diana's death, the years of careful image rehabilitation. She became queen consort. She made it, but the crown she helped Charles achieve is now being shaped by forces she can't control. And the influence she fought for is slipping away to a woman who never had to fight for public affection in the first place. Catherine just has it, and that has to sting. Charles, for his part, seems caught between duty and reality. He waited his entire life to be king, and now that he is, the role is being redefined around him. His health is reportedly a concern. He's missed key events. His public engagements have dropped. And into that vacuum, William has stepped with confidence and a clear vision. When William skipped an important meeting Charles hosted to visit a children's cancer unit in Manchester instead, the media coverage of William's visit dwarfed the attention given to the King's event. Whether or not that was intentional, it sent a signal about priorities, about where the energy of the monarchy actually lives. Now the generational shift isn't just symbolic, it's practical. The people who will carry the monarchy forward are already doing the work, and the public is responding. Charlotte's emergence is part of that, but so is George's quiet presence. During the announcement, he stood nearby, watching, taking it in. He didn't look jealous or uncomfortable. He looked like someone who understands his role and is secure enough in it to share the spotlight with his sister. That's not accidental. That's parenting. That's Catherine and William deliberately raising their children to see the monarchy as a shared responsibility rather than a competition. What we're watching is the early stages of a reign that hasn't officially begun yet. Charles still holds the title. Camilla still wears the crown, but the momentum, the public imagination, the direction of the institution, all of it has shifted to Kensington Palace. The old guard isn't gone, but their influence has been quietly, systematically reduced. And the announcement about Charlotte wasn't just about a little girl starting her first official duties. It was about cementing a new royal order, one that looks forward instead of back, one that understands the crown has to earn its place in people's hearts, rather than assuming it. The question now is how Charles and Camilla respond. Do they accept the new reality and find a way to work within it? Do they continue to resist and risk looking increasingly irrelevant? Camilla's instinct seems to be to fight, to reassert the hierarchy, to remind everyone that she and Charles are still the king and queen. But every attempt to do that runs up against the simple fact that the public has already moved on. They're interested in William and Catherine. They're charmed by Charlotte and George. They're watching the future take shape, and the present, represented by Charles and Camilla, feels increasingly like an interlude rather than an era. Charles's comment, "Let it unfold. It has already begun," suggests he understands this on some level. He knows the transition is happening whether he blesses it or not. The question is whether that understanding brings peace or just resignation, waiting your whole life for something and then realizing it's slipping away before you've really had a chance to define it. That's a hard thing to sit with. For Camilla, it's different. She didn't inherit this role through bloodline. She earned it through persistence, through weathering storms that would have broken most people, through staying by Charles's side when the entire world seemed to be against her. And now, just when she's reached the summit, she's watching her stepson and his wife claim the future in a way that leaves her on the margins. The meeting she called with palace advisors, the push to reassert the old order, that's not pettiness. That's desperation. Nobody's actually doing anything wrong. William isn't staging a coup. He's not undermining his father in any overt way. He's just doing the job, showing up, connecting with people, raising his children to understand service, making speeches that resonate. The fact that this feels like a threat to Charles and Camilla says more about their own position than it does about William's actions. The Kensington Palace announcement revealed all of this because of when and how it happened. Not at a formal event with the full family present, not with a coordinated statement from the palace, but at a garden party in the summer air, with William speaking from the heart, Catherine standing beside him, and Charlotte stepping forward into a role nobody outside their inner circle knew was coming. Charlotte herself seems remarkably ready for what's being asked of her. The comparisons to Diana and Queen Elizabeth aren't just about physical resemblance. It's about a quality she projects, this combination of warmth and steadiness that makes people want to root for her. She's young, but she's being prepared in a way that suggests her parents see her as essential to the monarchy's future, not just a supporting player in George's story. The silence from Clarence House continues. No statement, no warm words, no acknowledgement of Charlotte's new role from her grandfather the King or her step-grandmother the Queen. And that silence, more than anything, confirms that this announcement was not coordinated, not approved, not part of some family agreement. It was a unilateral move by the Waleses, and the King and Queen were either blindsided or chose not to participate. What comes next is the practical reality of Charlotte's new duties. She'll start attending engagements with Catherine, learning the rhythms of royal service, being introduced to the public not as a cute kid in a pretty dress, but as someone who will one day carry significant responsibility. The media will cover every appearance. The public will track her growth. And with each event, the contrast between the rising generation and the fading one will become harder to ignore. Charles and Camilla will still have their roles, their titles, their place in the order of things. But the energy, the attention, the sense of where the monarchy is heading, all of that now belongs to William and Catherine and their children. The crown is being reborn, as William said in his speech, not by abandoning tradition, but by evolving it. And evolution by its nature leaves some things behind. Charles and Camilla aren't being pushed out. They're just being passed by. The future arrived on a summer afternoon at Kensington Palace, and it wore the face of a young girl stepping forward while her father spoke about promises and service, and what the crown still means. The old guard can resist. They can call meetings. They can try to reassert the hierarchy. But the public has already chosen. The media has already shifted. The staff has already realigned. The transition isn't coming. It happened. And the only people who seem not to have gotten the memo are the ones still sitting in Clarence House, waiting for things to go back to the way they were.